Hello friends and welcome to MissionViewfinder. Today we're going to be talking about 3 ways that doing ministry affects your relationship with God. This is part 2 in the series of Why Do Ministry, where we're exploring reasons to do ministry. And so if you haven't watched the first video, I'll stick a card in the right top corner so you can watch that first video if you haven't already. Alright, let's get into it. When you do ministry, a lot of times God asks us to do things that push us outside of our comfort zone. Well, when you go outside of your comfort zone, it kind of forces you to depend on God more. So it increases dependence, and you see, how God comes through for you in that situation. That deepens your faith of believing that God is going to supply what you need, and also trusting that He knows best. So there's sort of this progression, and then all of that leads to greater confidence just in general that God is leading in His way is best. So I like to think of it in the terms of rock climbing. I remember the first time I went rock climbing, I think I was like maybe 12. They were teaching me to rappel, and I was at the top, standing on the edge of the cliff with the rope and being told I need to lean back. And that was very scary. And a question that I asked was, are you sure this rope is going to hold me? And when you first start to do ministry, it might be like that. Like, are you sure this is going to hold? Is this really what you want me to do, Lord? But I did it, and I started to learn that, you can trust the rope. And now I don't question, like when I'm rock climbing, I don't question that the rope is going to hold me. But there's still an element of, I'm going outside of my comfort zone because it's not normal to lean over a cliff like this.
Sometimes it's the little things, the little ways that God shows us that He can be dependent on, that we can have trust in Him. Like, there were 2 or 3 times, I honestly can't remember now, where we had company over the night before the day that I go shopping. And in order to feed all these people, it was going to take up the rest of the fruit that I had. Both times, or all 3 times, our neighbor lady showed up at our door the next morning with a watermelon or mangoes or bananas or something. Sometimes it was something she had grown, sometimes it was something she had bought, but she just wanted to come give to us. And it was like, wow, God was impressing me to give the night before. I was just thinking, I'm just going to have to go out and buy something because I'm not going to have what I need for the next day. And here the neighbor lady shows up with just what I needed. Then, of course, there's the times when the test and the experience comes related to money. Like when I was studying Thai, when I was in Bangkok, there was at least a couple of months where it was like, I think there's one person maybe going to send me some money to help with my expenses this month. But I don't think they're sending enough money. Like, how could they possibly be sending enough money? And then, lo and behold, at the end of the month, it was like just what I needed to cover all of my expenses. And it was like, during that time though, before the money came in, God was really speaking to my heart. Like, you trust your parents, you trust your family that, if you run out of money, you can go back to them. You trust your boyfriend, if you're stranded without money, he's going to help you out. But you don't trust me. And it really was a very trust-building experience to be able to see that it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if there's 1 person or 0 people sending me money. God's going to provide. Somehow, He's got this, and I can trust Him.
Faith is a lot like a muscle, and so the more you exercise it, the stronger it gets. So the more you do ministry, the stronger your faith and trust and confidence will grow in God.
The second way that working with God, that doing ministry can affect our relationship with God, is how it deepens our love for God. And there's some ways that working with God can really deepen our love for Him that just are amazing to me. And I know it's not the same for everybody, so we're going to share a couple of different experiences.
There's a battle going on between God and Satan, and sometimes we see that more than others. Well, here in Asia, when we're working, we often see that. And there have been so many times where we felt Satan attacking, whether it was through just sickness or not feeling good, or things going wrong with equipment and stuff like that. just like working with God and seeing Him pull us through those difficulties that we face or attacks from Satan is really helps to grow my love for God and realize His love for me and His love for His work and for people.
If only cutting the grass actually went that fast. Seriously though, if you're out cutting your lawn in this kind of heat by hand, high five. Drink lots of water. For me, one of the ways that doing ministry has really just filled my heart with, I guess you could say, love for God, has been seeing Him transform other people's lives. Seeing God work in other people's lives, seeing God answer prayer and transforming their thoughts and their ways and their desires has just really drawn out my heart in love and praise to God. Just realizing that He loves us so much, that He can reach down and transform a life. He can take someone who's struggling, who just doesn't know what to do with their life, and make it beautiful again, make it whole again. It's just wonderful. It's amazing.
And the third way that doing ministry affects our relationship with God is that it's a way to express our love to God. Now, God is the initiator, right? Jesus was a lamb slain from the foundation of the world. Jesus died for you before you were ever born, but He knew you would be. So that's like the epitome of initiation and taking the first step to initiate a relationship with us that God has taken. But if you think about it, love has to be expressed. If it's not expressed, is it really love? So when we say, yes, I'm going to do ministry, I'm going to share God with others, that's like lifting up God before the people is almost a form of praise, but it's also, doing what God wants us to do is a way of showing our love for Him, making our love action rather than just words. And that in turn is showing God's love to the people we're sharing with, which is, I just love the way it all goes together. But
one of the ways, though, that we can tell God I love you is by caring about what He cares about most, and that's people. It reminds me of the other day, I noticed that there were some glass jars that I had sitting on the countertop where I put plastic bags on them, to dry out. And I'd noticed that Jonathan had to move them all because he was needing that counter space for something. And here they were all back in the exact same order that I had them in. Now, you're probably gathering that I'm the kind of detail-oriented person like that. My husband's not really that kind of person when it comes to the way the jars are on the counter. But he knows that it matters to me. And it really spoke to my heart. It was like, wow, he went to the work of putting those back exactly how I like them. And it just makes me think of how must God feel when we really pour out our lives, our souls, into what matters to Him most.
So when we set self aside and do ministry, it's kind of a way of reciprocating the love that God has already shown us and telling Him, I love you. Alright, so just a quick review. 3 ways that doing ministry affects our relationship with God. Number 1, it helps deepen our faith and trust and confidence in God as we see Him come through for us. Number 2, it grows and deepens our love for God as we work with Him and we see His character more clearly, we fall in love with Him deeper. And number 3, it's a way to reciprocate and to show God that we love Him as well.
Well, that's all for this week, friends. Why don't you drop us a comment below and tell us how doing ministry has affected your relationship with God. We'd love to hear from you. We also want to invite you to hit subscribe, like this video, and join us next week.